I'll just cut to the chase with this one. Jack Torrance, Jack Nicholson, is appointed the caretaker of the Overlook Hotel in the off-season from October to May. However, due to his rather insane nature and some paranormal influence, Jack Torrance becomes a violent man hell-bent on killing his family, while his son has psychic abilities foreseeing such events. I know I'm gonna get hate for this, but this film was pretty much two things for the majority of the running time: ungodly boring and unintentionally funny. While the film does look fantastic, there is nothing of substance to the beautifully shot scenes being shown to make it actually engaging. While watching, there are many shots that I know there is some sort of atmosphere or creepy tone, but it's really non-existent outside of the opening scene, which in my eyes is really the best part of the movie. You have this overall sense of dread and uncomfortableness to the whole thing. This creepy music, this certain distance from Jack's car, these strange voices and noises, and it just pulls you in despite having this uncomfortable feeling, ending with a magnificent shot of the hotel. It would normally set the tone for a great horror film, but that isn't the case here. This and maybe the climax are the only genuinely terrifying moments throughout the film. The rest is unintentionally boring atmosphere with no sense of dread. Plus, all the characters are so unlikable that I really didn't care about any of them, even though you're supposed to identify with Wendy and Danny. A lot of the problems, though, rest on the fact that Jack Nicholson was a horrible casting choice as Jack Torrance. He's just this insane guy put in this situation where he becomes more insane, as well as the fact you don't really get to know him as a character except the fact that he's just an alcoholic who's nuts. In the novel, which I unfortunately have not read yet, he was an everyman who slowly became a deranged psychopath due to the spirits that haunt the hotel. He had his flaws, but he was still a normal guy and not, the fucking Joker. In the book, there's a heavy reliance on the paranormal, while here, it's more like cabin fever with the supernatural almost being an afterthought. Stephen King saw this from the beginning and begged Kubrick not to cast Nicholson. He stated that the everyman going insane over the course of the novel was much more interesting and wanted someone like Jon Voight, Christopher Reeve, or Michael Moriarty for the role, with heavy favoring towards Voight. Okay, I'm just gonna say this. There is a parallel universe out there where The Shining, Stephen King's The Shining, has fucking Superman going after his family with an axe in a hotel. Now that is a version of this movie I definitely want to fucking see. But moving on. In terms of performances, it also doesn't help the fact that Wendy is played by Shelley Duvall, who is hands down one of the worst actresses to ever grace the silver screen, and was even nominated as such at the first ever Razzies, along with Kubrick, but lost to Brooke Shields in The Blue Lagoon. Look, I understand she was tortured on set by Kubrick, which is inexcusable, but that doesn't excuse her awful acting in the final product. Danny Lloyd was also pretty terrible, but not as bad as Duvall. To me, it's a film that doesn't work no matter what way you look at it. Not only is it a horrific adaptation of what seems like a magnificent book, but it's a horror film that just isn't scary. Even worse for the fact that with any scene with Jack going crazy is just unintentionally funny. Not on the hair on my chinny chin chin. Like, how in the fuck is that supposed to be scary to anyone? The fucking Simpsons parody is scarier than this. However, I will say this. There are plenty of horror films that I personally don't find scary, but are still well-made movies. Like Get Out, for instance. I know what I'm watching is supposed to be scary and recognize it and respect it, but I don't personally find it scary. With The Shining, I can't really see it. I see the amazing cinematography, but behind said cinematography, there is just this vacancy. No heart, no substance, nothing to bring me in. Nothing to get me enraptured in this world. I'll also say this in terms of book versus movie. I don't mind that a film takes liberties with the source material. If it's to streamline the film and cut the fat to make it digestible towards audiences, that's totally fine. I mean, you have to, or you get something very boring, like the 1997 miniseries. This, however, just cuts out all the interesting bits from the novel, and we're left with a terrible, unscary, boring, and vacant film. As King said, it's like a fancy car, but with no engine. I don't fucking get it. I just don't fucking get it. I do not fucking get this fucking movie. I really don't. I really, really don't. This fucking movie is a fucking shitstorm. I do not care that it's beloved. I do not care that everyone will suck its dick until the end of time. I do not fucking care. This movie fucking sucks. I rewatched it in maybe the hopes that I would change my mind. Maybe, just maybe, I would like it. But no, even though I watched the shorter European cut this time around, it was still fucking terrible. The pacing has got to be the worst I have ever seen in a motion picture. It is torturous. But hey, maybe that was the fucking point. Maybe that was Kubrick's endgame, to torture the audience with his ineptitude when it comes to horror, just like what the characters are going through in the fucking movie. Because if that's the case, then this is the scariest fucking movie ever made, because it was so fucking boring. Stanley Kubrick is a brilliant filmmaker, an asshole, and probably a sociopath, but hey, who isn't in Hollywood these days? But he didn't get horror. I am sorry if that bursts your fucking bubble, but he didn't. Give him a war movie, and he'll clean up shop like nobody's fucking business. But horror? No. Fuck no. Honestly, at this point, I don't even care about its relation to the book. I don't, because the movie sucks whether it does or it doesn't adapt the fucking book. Is there anything that is good? Well, as I mentioned, the opening shot is still brilliant. The climax is surprisingly engaging. The music is great, and the cinematography is fucking beautiful. But that's it. In terms of stuff that's intentional, because if we get into the stuff that's unintentional, ooh-wee, that is different set of praising, but not exactly what Stanny Boy fucking wanted. Well, there are some notes in the first half. It's mainly in the second half where it gets so fucking hilarious. Jack Nicholson trying to be scary has got to be the most hilarious fucking thing I have seen in a straight-laced horror movie. That and Shelley Duvall being atrocious still, and Danny Lloyd also being bad. Duvall didn't deserve what happened to her, but she still didn't give a good performance, and I'm not gonna excuse her bad acting just because of what happened to her. Duvall, from line delivery to mannerisms, is just so bad. I didn't find it believable in the slightest, and again, more funny than scared. Lloyd is a bit more excusable because he's a kid, so I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, but his Tony voice and his derp face are pretty fucking hilarious. This is just a case of a movie where I will never understand the love for. I really fucking don't. Any film I don't like, I can see for the most part why people might like it, but this, I don't. The only excuse I can give it is that it was hated upon release, and people years later were like, well, guess we have to like it now, just like The Thing in Blade Runner. Ah, well, that's the only thing I can maybe see, because this is just a horribly boring and unintentionally funny film. Fuck this fucking movie. Gimme Dr. Sleep any fucking day of the fucking week. Stanley Kubrick, go fuck yourself. Just kidding. The rest of your filmography outside of Eyes Wide Shut's amazing, but still, fuck this movie.